Phil Ivey, the man who won over $300 million and used his poker genius to dominate the tables and outsmart all the casinos with a controversial technique that nearly cost him everything. Let's see how it happened. Humble beginnings. Philip Dennis Ivey Jr. was born on the 1st of February 1977 in Riverside, California, to a low-income family. His family often moved around as rent money didn't come very easy, and finally his family settled in Roselle, New Jersey, and one thing that he grew up watching was his grandfather play the game of poker. Phil's parents were hard-working disciplinarians who didn't earn a whole lot, and since they couldn't afford to pay for a retirement home, Phil's grandfather had to live with him as well. As a child, Phil didn't have a lot of friends, and since the neighborhood wasn't very safe, he spent most of his time indoors. He took a strong liking to board games like Monopoly, chess, and checkers, and when he turned 8 years old, his grandfather began teaching him how to play 5-card stud just to pass the time. The problem was, his grandfather was a cheat, and to teach him a lesson about losing, he would cheat every time. Phil lost nearly every single game, but instead of becoming frustrated, he became obsessed with figuring out how to beat the man. Phil was a fast learner, quickly picking up all of the rules, and by the time he was a teenager, he was knowledgeable about poker, often playing with friends at school. He learned to manipulate emotion and get other players to make the wrong call out of panic. Now, one day he played a stranger for a small amount of money, which he won, and his new friend praised him for it, saying that he would do well if he competed at the casino. That moment, a light bulb lit up in Phil's mind, and he decided to try his luck. However, there was one little problem: he was still underage. Every gambler has that one story, the time they beat the odds and hit it big. Now it's your turn to create your story and become a main character in our future videos. Welcome to Crypto Rush, where luck meets opportunity in the world of crypto gambling. Deposit crypto, play your favorite games, and cash out in seconds. Crypto Rush brings the joy and excitement of a casino to your fingertips. Click the first link in the description and start your winning streak today. Use code CR50 to get $50 free to play on slots, casino games, or the sportsbook. Crypto Rush, where legends are made. Jerome Graham. Phil was just 17 years old but desperate to play real poker with the pros, and the only way he was going to do that was get access to a casino. The legal age to play at the casino was 21, so Phil did what every determined gambler would do. He created a fake ID with the name Jerome Graham. The strange new name became his alter ego, and for some reason made him feel like an undercover hero who had been sent to infiltrate and conquer the world of poker. He would take the bus from Roselle to Atlantic City multiple times a week, spending hours at the poker table. He had a rocky beginning, literally losing to everyone that he played with. They saw him as an easy target. He was young and reckless and had the confidence but lacked the skill to back it up. It just didn't look like he had figured it all out. At some point, he began to develop a bit of self-doubt, which is what happens when you play with the pros. Jerome became obsessed and studied every detail in sight. The way the players handled their chips, how their hands motioned when they bluffed, simple things like hesitation in their voice when they called a big bet. He began to see patterns and weaknesses in people's games. Though no particular rule applied to everyone, he played with thousands of people to understand enough about how they played and what signs they gave away. He wasn't interested in partying with friends or getting a 9-to-5 job, but he was highly invested in the gambling world, wanted to make it his profession. By the age of 21, he had spent thousands of hours on poker and was ready to compete in the big leagues, playing in various tournaments while building up his bankroll and playing smartly. He had his eyes set on the World Series of Poker and wanted to prove that he belonged with the greats. His first World Series of Poker bracelet. By the year 2000, Phil had been in the poker scene, playing at different levels for several years, and had become recognized as a formidable player. Now he just needed to win a major tournament to prove that he belonged with the great. He entered the $2,500 pot limit Omaha event at the World Series of Poker that year, and had played in a few tournaments, but none had tested him like this one. He battled through various tables until finding himself at the finals, and on the same table with Amarillo Slim, a poker legend who had won the World Series of Poker in 1972. On the other side of the table was a member of poker's old guard, and Phil knew that he was in deep water but remained hopeful. He studied every single move and glance, and after what seemed like hours, Amarillo Slim would be eliminated, and Phil was locked in. The table erupted in applause because Phil had done the unthinkable. He beat the cowboy hustler to win his first World Series of Poker bracelet. The 23-year-old was the first African-American player to beat Amarillo Slim in a World Series of Poker event. Rise of the Poker King. After Phil's huge victory, he wasn't satisfied. He had gotten a taste of greatness and wanted to dominate high-stakes cash games while building a solid name for himself. The early 2000s were a golden era of poker. The game had gained popularity and publicity and brought about the rise of online poker and broadcasting of World Series events on ESPN. Suddenly, poker players were like celebrities. Phil had gotten even better at his game, racking up tournament victories to become one of the most revered players at the table. People began to refer to him as the Tiger Woods of poker, possibly because of his skill and his undeniable resemblance to the golf legend. But most importantly, his African-American heritage in a mostly white-dominated game made him stand out easily. He approached the game of poker like a grandmaster, participating in high-stakes games and winning millions of dollars at the table, and he became something of a boogeyman in the poker world, his mere presence striking fear into the hearts of everyone he played with. He was a master at reading people and they knew it, but somehow they were unable to return the favor. He was devoid of expression while playing, making his next move impossible to read, and was the true definition of a poker face. Between the years of 2002 and 2005, he took home 5 more WSOP bracelets in various games that ranged from Omaha high-low to 7-card stud, proving to be a different breed of poker player, and he didn't focus all of his energy on no-limit hold'em. He mastered every variant of the game. He showed up in major games as well as the biggest cash games in the world, playing and besting some of the toughest legends like Chip Reese, Doyle Brunson, and Johnny Chan. These were the biggest sharks in the game and were not necessarily playing just for the money, but for the adrenaline and the feeling of control. One of Phil's biggest influences was poker veteran Barry Greenstein. He became a mentor, teaching Phil so many things about the game, like how to manage his bankroll, handle the swings, as well as the thing that Phil is mostly known and feared for, how to stay calm under pressure. High-stakes madness. Phil Ivey had become a household name in the poker world, and by 2009 had won 7 World Series bracelets and was dominating the World Poker Tour. His winnings from tournaments were over $10 million, but the real inflow came from high-stakes cash games. He went up against billionaires, winning tens of millions of dollars in a single session, and by the year 2017 would be inducted into the Poker Hall of Fame, making him one of the greatest players in history. Phil spent a lot of time in Bobby's room at the Bellagio, a place regarded as the mecca of high-stakes poker. Blinds could go as high as $4,000 per $8,000, and pots could hit millions of dollars in a single hand. It was no place for a beginner or even a mid-level player, and while Phil had made enough to live a very comfortable life, he still played these high-stakes games because it was all about the rush of competition and the mind game. Players would go up against Phil just because of the rumors that he could read people's thoughts and see right through them, and as always, he didn't disappoint. In some cases, people would wear glasses to hide their eyes, as not to give off any signs, but they still met defeat at the hands of the Poker King. Phil was a multi-millionaire but didn't behave like one. He wasn't flashy, he didn't go to wild parties, he didn't get expensive homes and luxury vehicles. He lived a regular and reclusive life and was about gambling and winning. However, the biggest challenge was yet to come. Edge sorting scandal. Early in 2012, Phil pulled off one of the most controversial gambling schemes of all time, a move that led to heavy lawsuits, millions of dollars in loss, and a permanent dent in the legacy he had worked hard to build. It all began when Phil visited Crockford Casino in London with a fellow gambler, popularly known in the gambling world as the Queen of Sorts. They weren't playing poker, but instead indulging in Punto Banco, a high-stakes version of Baccarat. But they weren't just playing, they were using edge sorting. There are so many techniques that have been termed cheating, but edge sorting was relatively new and not yet popular. Edge sorting is a technique where you identify imperfections, differences, and similarities on the back of playing cards as a result of how the cards are mass printed by the manufacturing company. Phil and Soon were able to spot these imperfections on the back of the cards and use them to gain advantage while playing. It wasn't exactly cheating in the traditional sense, just a loophole that had not yet been explored. Throughout several evenings, Phil had won $10 million, but the casino, having discovered how he was beating the game, refused to pay him out, claiming he had exploited the defect in the game. Phil sued the casino but lost the case, and in a similar situation that happened at Borgata in Atlantic City, Phil had used the same technique to win $9.6 million. The casino then sued him, demanding that the money be refunded after carefully studying the video recordings of the game. After years of legal battle, Phil lost the case, and you could say that edge sorting was now officially recognized as being illegal in the casino. In an interview, he said he didn't feel like he'd done anything wrong. He just outsmarted the casino and they didn't like it, but just imagine seeing an edge right in front of you and deciding not to use it. Modern era and legacy. The 2010s came with a lot of changes. Internet players took over the poker world, and the old generation players were beginning to fade into obscurity. However, Phil never stopped adapting. He played both online and offline, and despite the scandal, remained in the eyes of the public and kept studying and playing the game. In 2018, he returned to the World Series of Poker and made it to the finals, leaving with a $50,000 cash prize, showing that he still belonged amongst the elites of the modern era. He's remembered as one of the most dominant poker players of all time. What do you think about the career of Phil Ivey, the great poker player? Let me know in the comments below. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.